listening to Inclusive AF with Jackie Clayton and Katie Van Horn.
Welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast. I'm Katie Van Horn.
And I'm Jackie Clayton.
Whoop, whoop. And we are so very excited to have one of our friends along for the conversation today. Miss Tamara Raspberry is here, and we're going to get down with some conversations on mental health and mental health in the workplace. And so just to jump right in and get us going, Tamara, would love for you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your identity story, who you are, and then we'll dive into the conversation topics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you so much also, Jackie, for having me on your podcast. I'm so honored to be here today. Y'all can't see my shirt, but I wore my little mental health. Depression is not a decision, it's a diagnosis shirt for y'all.
Nice.
So you talk about mental health. My identity, basically, when someone asks me anything about my identity, I always say I'm a Black person first, because no matter what else I was going to turn out to be, I was going to be Black because my parents were Black. So whether I was male, female, cis, gay, whatever, I was always going to be a Black version of that. So I'm a Black person. I am cisgender female, in my 40s. And, born and raised in Washington, D.C., and, have kids. I have a grandbaby. And my life has really consisted of, it's funny, I've lived on kind of two ends of the spectrum, because I grew up in like kind of the nuclear two-parent middle-class household situation. But as an adult, I'm more like a poor single mother. But so I've seen different aspects of life and can speak to different aspects of life that people might be surprised that I actually can speak to. But I've had a lot of life experiences. As you know, I'm an HR practitioner, and I've been doing HR for over 20 years now, actually. And so that experience is also, in and of itself, as a Black woman, professional, in these organizations, another set of challenges. So when I talk about my identity, or I'll say like the lens that I see everything through, it's first and foremost as a Black American woman, female. I say female. Some people get offended by the word female. I'm not offended by it. A Black American female. And then everything else kind of falls under there.
And we've known you and it's so funny. I think it's been at least 5+ years, as we say in the HR world.
However long I've been going to work human.
Right. Yeah. So Tamara is part of the crew that goes to Work Human, and we all get to spend some time together once a year, which, I think for all of us, we would love to have more time, but understandably.
But we talk all year
round. We have our communication via Twitter and LinkedIn and every other social media platform. So if you ever need to hear what's going on between all of us, you can jump on Twitter and we'll let you know everything you need to know about the housewives.
More than I talk to people like that I know, because I just talk to y'all like all the time. I'm like, I know y'all.
Yeah.
Every time I hear Waco, I think of Jackie.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know anything about Waco except for
Chip and Joanna.
You know who I'm talking about?
Chip and
Joanna.
Gang.
No.
Oh, the Waco? Branch Davidians?
Yes, them and you.
Oh.
It's usually one of them. Branch Davidians, Baylor, or Chip and Joe.
Yeah, Baylor too. Yeah.
Baylor as well. That's awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We do appreciate it. We know you're busy, and obviously, we're right before the but you all won't hear it until after the first of the year. But one of the things that we want to talk about, and it's been such a topic this year because of all of the chaos of 2020, the whole impact of mental health in the workplace, and the focus that has been placed on that. And so would love to just start off with, tell us a little bit about, what are, I know that this is something that you're passionate about. Why are you passionate about mental health? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have a mental health diagnosis myself of major depressive disorder and anxiety. So this has been my life for probably more than half my life, but I didn't actually have the diagnosis until a few years ago. So it was always just, this is just how I am. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This is just like, I would get in these low moments, or I would, have these certain thoughts and stuff. And it's just how I am, and it wasn't until I got to a extremely low moment where I actually had to go to the hospital where I was diagnosed. And from then on, I've been having therapy and medication and things of that nature. And I started to see that, how sometimes like you don't really pay attention to stuff until it hits you. And then it's like, oh, okay. So of course I was always aware of like mental health. I studied it in school. I used to want to be a psychologist. So, I was always these things, interested in how the mind works, which is why I watch, serial killer stuff. I'm always interested in how the mind works, but because I'm an HR person, I started really thinking about, okay, this is how this impacts me as a person having to still make a living, going to work. There's been times where I couldn't go to work. There's been time, you know what I'm saying? So, and I know I'm not the only one. And I realized it wasn't a comfortable conversation. It wasn't a conversation that people wanted to have. People would say things like, you could lose your job if people know that you live with depression, or you could, all these things, or you shouldn't tell people, or like when you fill out the EEO, should you say you have a disability or not, and things, all of those type of things. And so it's like, well, I got it because it wasn't something that I really talked to people about either, but also why, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it should be your choice, but it shouldn't be out of fear that don't have these conversations, or things happen to you in life, or things happen to you at work, and they can't be addressed because you're like, well, if I let them know this, then that I'm not going to be able to get that promotion, or if I let them know, things like that. So it became really important to me to not only open up the conversation about mental health and mental illness in general, but also how it impacts us in the workplace, because that's the arena that I work in, right? The workplace, HR, employee engagement, et cetera, et cetera. And we can't forget that employees are people. Employees are not non-people. They do not have things that people don't have. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times I hear conversations and people are talking about employees like they're a different breed of, they're not quite humans and they're not quite cats and dogs, but they're like some other thing that we treat, and so it's like, well, no, all the things that human beings deal with, employees deal with, because guess what? Spoiler alert, that's what they are. So, you know, it's important to me for us to keep having these conversations and to really get in front of, my fellow HR practitioners, leaders, employers, and share ways that they can make these conversations comfortable in their workplaces, because people rarely have an issue saying, I can't come to work because I broke my leg, but it's like, I can't come to work because I'm having a breakdown. You don't want to say it. And again, you shouldn't have to, but it shouldn't be out of fear. It shouldn't be out of, I might lose my job if I say this, or I might not get XYZ opportunity if I say this,
I think
so
that's
that's where I'm coming from with it.
it's horrible. I'm glad that you brought that up. It is horrible to think that, you know, we always talk about bringing your full self to work. And and that's part of it. I think 2020 has been brought a lot of these things to light, because if people were like just hanging on, and then all of this change and all of the unknown drives people, especially if you have anxiety. It was like, we talked a little bit earlier, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and every once in a while I'll start feeling normal, and then all of a sudden it's like,
You remember.
I'm worried, like, oh, I didn't make Christmas cookies, let me go to the grocery store. And it's like, and all the things with I think with George Floyd too, and all of the racial trauma and bringing those things back, and understanding that we have to bring that to light too. Racial trauma, PTSD around those areas. There's
Oh my
just
goodness,
a
yes.
lot.
Okay, so 2020, I mean, you could not have written a story as crazy as everything that went on with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor during a freaking pandemic.
No.
Like, if you could have set some writers down and say, write a crazy story, they wouldn't have came up with it. Like, all of that coming together at the same time. And what was so wild to me was the whole, I didn't know it was like this for you Blacks. I didn't know that you had such a horrible life in America. Like, I was just like, where have y'all been?
My favorite is, I'm so sorry.
Right, like,
but you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on.
You haven't been paying a bit of attention. Like, huh? I just didn't know it was this bad. We're gonna fix it. Well, let's fix it. What we doing? Like, let's start. Like, let's write some stuff down and get to moving. Like, I'm tired of we're gonna have. It's like these companies are like the government. They want to have a task force for everything. We're gonna have a task force. We're gonna have a group. We're gonna have a committee. Just fix it. Stop talking.
Yeah, I think that's been the one that we've talked about this a little bit, and we've talked about, CEOs who either decided to make a statement or not make a statement, but more of the, okay, that's cool, make a statement, but what actions, what are you doing? What are you actually doing to change things? What are you doing to make it better? And I think that's a piece that, circling back to mental health, it's also that, that there's so many unknowns, and coming to work and feeling like, I don't know what's going on outside of these four walls, even though you're at home, but what's going on out in the world, but also how does that then impact me coming to work if I do have, anxiety, do have any type of things that, come up from a mental health perspective. And, the kind of double whammy of, or triple, quadruple, whatever type, however many levels you're dealing with on a daily basis. And how can you actually function as a human, back to, that our employees are actually humans. How can you do that in the right way? And that's the other part that I think is so, it kind of does fall by the wayside, that yes, these are humans that we're talking about.
Because let me tell you, my anxiety was on 1,000 about even going outside. Okay. So I was like, y'all can talk about opening the office back up if y'all want to. T-Raz ain't gonna be up in there. Okay. I was like, I don't even go outside. Okay. My balcony was as far as I'm going. So it was like, it took me a long time to even start going to the grocery store. Okay. And that's still I'm not in these streets like that. So you talking about, and I know I'm not the only one, right? So I was like, I know I don't want to go traveling to the office. Other people don't want to go. And, there were some companies that were like, well, y'all got to come back. Thankfully, my company is still letting us work remotely. But I know people who had to go back into the office to work in the office, not even like they work in a warehouse or something. It's like, y'all sitting at the desk that y'all could have been sitting at home. That's another story. But there's a lot that comes with that. That's a very real, for the people we can't help it if you're afraid. Yes, I'm afraid to catch COVID and die. Yes, I am. I feel like that's a very real thing that people should have the right to be. And, we've seen the numbers on how anxiety and depression have increased dramatically during COVID, right? So even if you weren't even dealing with them before, even if you didn't even understand, like, I don't even understand why people get depressed. So that's so dumb. Now you in here like, I'm depressed. Like, people are getting it now. So that's one of the things that I felt has almost been like a slight silver lining, that as far as the mental health conversation, because more people are experiencing it, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it's giving more understanding to them for the people who were experiencing it already. It's like, oh, this is what this feels like. This is what, this is what my friend was talking about when she was saying she had anxiety, or this is what, my cousin was talking about when they were telling me about their depression. Like, I get it now. Sometimes people have to feel it to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot more people are getting it now because they're feeling it. So it's helping us to have more of the conversations. And even on a grander scale, you're seeing more people talk about how, there needs to be more mental health resources and communities and things like that. So it starts from these small, these one-on-one conversations to these larger, like workplace conversations, to these policy conversations, to, all of it branches out. And so that's why we really can't stop talking about it, because when you stop talking about it, then people forget, people think it's not important, or people go back to, well, it doesn't impact me, so why do I need to worry about it? When in reality, it impacts everybody, whether you're living with it, or somebody who's living with it, or you work with somebody who's living with it. And honestly, you never know when it's gonna happen. You could be la, tiptoeing through the tulips and have some type of trauma happen to you, you know, and next thing you know, you're going through a deep cycle of depression, or it's not, you can never say, because I don't feel this now, I never will feel it. Or because I don't experience it now, I never will experience it. So to me, that's another piece of the education, is that getting people more aware of what it can look like, what it can feel like, the resources you have if you find yourself in a situation, so that if you do, you're not completely blindsided, like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. It's like, oh, okay, this, based on what I've heard and read in open conversations we're having in the country, it seems like I'm having symptoms of, depression or symptoms of anxiety. Let me talk to my doctor about it, or let me you know what I'm saying? Let me see if I can find a therapist, instead of just sitting at home thinking, something's wrong with me, but I don't know what it is.
Finding a great career has always been a challenge. But today, with the massive changes underway in just about every sector of the economy, in just about every country in the world, finding a great new career is even more challenging. And if you're a student, recent graduate, or someone else early in their career, it's even harder for you because you just don't have the experience that those who might be 10, 20, 30 years older than you have. The answer? The podcast, From Dorms to Desks, a podcast by College Recruiter job search site, where every week we take a deep dive into a topic specifically of interest to candidates who are early in their careers and looking for a great part-time, seasonal, internship, or other entry-level job.
I was going to ask you about those resources, because similarly to people talking about diversity but not saying what they're going to do, you see people are like, oh, sorry about the COVID, everybody stay at home, but they don't have a plan. We know that COVID affects people's mental health. They've done the study that people who have had COVID at various levels have mental health issues that they think stem from having this virus. Mm-hmm. And they've also said that, we know people have the anxiety and people still have to work, especially people who are already marginalized Like they don't have a choice.
Right.
And
Yes.
I went to Sonic and I heard the lady at Sonic was like, well, I have a cold, but I never miss work. And I was like, I swear to God, if I get COVID over this freaking bacon and cheese and egg croissant,
Okay.
I'm gonna be so
Ma'am,
pissed.
I'm gonna need you to start missing work.
This is my nightmare. Like, what can companies do so that it doesn't come too late? What do you think is a good way of dealing with it proactively?
In regards to mental health,
Yes.
or proactively, I think establishing it in your workplace as like a conversation. So say for example, if your workplace has like lunch and learns or um CEO Q&As or some type of thing where you usually come together and talk, like make one of those conversations be about mental health, like when you send out reminders, say if you have a staff newsletter or something like that, include information about mental health in there, include articles. If you have an EAP, employee assistance program for the uninitiated, make sure you're always sharing how to access it. Like I send out the information for the EAP multiple times throughout the year, even though it's easily accessible to staff, but I always want to remind them, it's here. If you're going through something, if you need someone to talk to, if you know what I'm saying, I just always want it to be top of mind that it is available. So just kind of always, and then also leading by example. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with you being a manager or a director or business owner or something and saying, hey, I need to set some boundaries for myself, right? I need to step back. Because even when we talk about burnout and we talk about people who feel like, because of technology, they always have to be available or always have to be on, that impacts your mental health as well, right? So, lead by example as a owner or supervisor or whatever. Like that's not the expectation for you to always be on. Take a break when you need to. I tell my people all the time, take a break when you need to. The work will be there, because you can best believe I'm gonna take a break if I need to. And I tell my colleagues, take a break if you need to. It's not that deep. Your sanity and your well-being is way more important than getting this letter typed by 5 p.m. Like it just is. There was a it's low-key inappropriate now because of COVID, but there used to be a meme where it would be like, but did anybody die though? Like
Right.
it's like I always think about that when it comes to work stuff. It's like, oh, okay, they didn't get that report to you by 3 p.m. But did anybody die though? Like it's like you're gonna be all right. You'll get it at 4. You might get it at 9 a.m. But you know, could be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a whole ass lot worse. And so, I always believe in also like checking in. So like, and this is one of the things that I've been telling people this year that is hard to do when you haven't already been doing it. So now, you see a lot of people like asking, well, how do we check in with our employees now because of COVID and we're working remotely, da 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 da. But I've never talked to them before. Like it's like, well, shame on you. You've never talked to them before. They probably don't want to hear from you now. But so it's like that, cultivating that culture of communication pre-crisis, right? So when a person does have an individual crisis, or if it's a large crisis like we're all going through right now, that communication is already there. So if you're my supervisor, I can be like, you know what, Jackie, this has not been a good week for me, man. Like, I know I was supposed to have that deadline, by Friday, and I've been working on it, but this just been a really tough week for me. And, could we, switch some things around, and not feeling like, oh my goodness, they're going to think badly of me. They're going to think I'm not a good worker. That's why I'm always like, you always check in, and not just about performance, about the person. you know? So when I talk to people, I don't just say, where are you at with that project? I'm like, how you feeling? How you doing? Now that we've been having the the working remotely and everything like that, I have one of my people who reports to me who's away from family. Like she's not from this area. So I'm like, do you have someone you could talk to? Do you have people you could, reach out to if you feel too isolated? Like I know you have a cat, but like sometimes you might want to talk to a person. Like, I'm like, what's your plan? So that I know that she's all right over there in her apartment, not being able to go to work and things like that. So, and that don't have nothing to do with, okay, you need to give me this assignment by the 16th. That's you as a human being, right? Those are the kind of conversations that people need to be having in the workplace so that when things come up, it's not, oh my goodness, what do I do? Or, oh my goodness, how am I going to handle this? Or, oh my goodness, it's, I know this person as a person. And yes, there are some companies that are so large, right? So you always hear like, we have 5,000 people. How can we do? But you have teams. You have smaller teams. Somebody reports to somebody. It's not that you, as the CEO of a 5,000 person company, has to have an individual conversation with every employee, but their supervisor, their team manager, whoever their group is, they should be able to have someone that's checking on them as a human being.
Yeah,
And that to me is how you make it so that, it's open conversation. It's not hard to, you know, when you're going through something, even if you don't want to say exactly what it is. Like I may not want to say, my depression is really hitting me hard this week, but I can at least say, look, I'm not going to be able to make that deadline, and you're not like, well, look, this your first strike. Like, like, can we lead with empathy, people, please?
Show some grace.
yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned something earlier about trauma. That the trauma can kind of trigger a reaction and can trigger um, kind of these things to come to the surface. And I also think there's been so many people. We are seeing the numbers increase of diagnosis of mental
I
challenges.
just showed y'all my whole under. My bad. I was trying to close the curtain.
It's
It looked like I had a little halo,
You
and I
do
know I'm
have
angelic,
it.
but I was
Angelic,
trying.
very angelic.
This has kind of been below the surface for some folks, and the trauma of this year, be it the COVID-19, be it all of the trauma with all of the murders that have been kind of in our face, all of these things. I think so many people have been diagnosed because it's been more of a, oh wow, now I'm sitting here at home by myself having to actually figure this out.
Right.
Whereas before I could just make
Having to
myself
acknowledge
busy.
these feelings.
Yes, exactly. And so, I think one of the ones that recently, and you actually posted about this, that I think was really extraordinary just because the transparency was so awesome. And it is, one of those things that we are asking, hey, be more transparent about these things, be more transparent about what we should do, is, Matthew Cooper, who is the co-founder of Earn Up. He just posted a letter, kind of an open letter to everyone about the fact that he was stepping down as CEO of Earn Up because of his mental well-being and making sure that he's taking care of himself. And so, would love, I thought what he wrote was great. Would love, both of your thoughts on kind of what he wrote and how he was so transparent.
I thought that was amazing. Well, I kind of have dual thoughts about it, but first and foremost, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was excellent that he was able to share that this is what I'm doing and this is why, because again, it's a very important conversation, right? It's very important for people to understand that people are dealing with this. Like part of what he said was he's been dealing with different types of mental health challenges for years and years and years. People can be thoroughly successful, and that's one of the things that people forget. You can be high key successful and be living with any number of mental illnesses or other mental health challenges. So it's not a matter of, oh, if this person is able to do this, they must, not have any issues. It's like, no,
Mhm.
a lot of us got issues. So I thought it was important, that he put that out there. I thought it was, definitely key that he took the stand for his own mental well-being and said, look, I can't do this right now for my own self, right? Like, because ain't nobody gonna watch out for your mental health but just, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't do it, who gonna do it? You could get help, you could get doctors and therapists and everything, but you have to be the one to actually say, hey, I gotta put my mental health first, before anything else. So that to me was so applause worthy. But then of course what also stood out to me was, okay, this is great, but I'm also thinking about it still comes not to it's not anything against him. It's just an observation in general that it's being able to do that is a privilege, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people who can't do that, who can't just say, you know, I can't deal right now because of my mental health, and so I'm going to quit my job. Whether it's a CEO, an admin assistant, a janitor, a program director, like, you know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of people who can't do that or feel like they can't do that. Let me tell you, the whole process for trying to apply for SSI is some BS. Okay, so it's like it's like you're like, I can't work, but I can't not work. You know what I'm saying? So, that stood out to me as well. It's like, what a blessing it is to be able to have that ability to just say, I'm gonna step down from my work, y'all, because I need to take care of my mental health. I would so love to do that. Wouldn't anybody? Um,
Well, yeah,
but I did think ultimately it was great that he did it, and it was great that he shared it, because it shows other people, an example of putting yourself first, putting your own well-being first and your own health first. And that's what you really have to do. It's my mantra. It's what I tell people all the time. Put yourself first. Like don't work yourself to death. If you don't feel up to it, whether it's physical health or mental health, I tell people the same thing all the time with physical health. If you feel sick, don't go to work. Like, obviously there's a level of privilege that comes with that as well, but I'm talking about like in my job, my office, my colleagues. If you feel sick, don't come to work, and if you own sick leave, don't work. Like, it's no point in having sick leave and you still sitting at home working. You're supposed to be resting, you're supposed to be recuperating, getting your situation together so you can come back to work healthy and strong. Not, oh, I'm just not in the office but I'm still focusing all my energy on work. That's not sick leave to me. That's work from home. And that's not the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Sick leave is I'm sick, leave me alone.
That's right. Sick, leave me alone. I like it.
So that's how that should work. So I'm always like, if you don't, and that could be physical or mental. It could be physical, it could be you're physically sick, you have a head cold, you got sinus infection, or it could be, I need a mental health day. And I need a mental health day is just as important as I have a sinus infection. And leave me alone for both. Away status on the Slack, auto replies on the email. Like, we good. This is what paid leave is for.
the one I had with my boss is I would call in sick and tired.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired. I just need a day off. Like I just need a minute. Yeah. For my mental well-being. I wasn't calling in sick. I was calling in sick and tired.
And I honestly think everyone should do that at some point, just regardless of what level you are. Just take a day where it's like, to be honest, take it before you need it. Take a day to be like, I'm just going to take a breather. I'm not going to reply to no emails. I'm just going to chill, play with my cat or whatever. No innuendo. Like, and take a breather, before you need it, before you cuss somebody out was real, because that's real too. Okay. These people will try you. Y'all know, y'all work in HR. They will try. gonna try you. And
Yeah.
it's like, yo, I'm trying to keep my zen, but y'all tried me on these benefits. So it's like,
Before
sometimes
you
you
have
just
to
gotta,
step down. That's the thing that stood out after I read the article and I had a good hour. The first thing that came to me after the initial thought was, I wonder what the company culture is like at that organization. And you had an opportunity, you have all of these, I'm not blaming, but it's like you, if you have it, it's so stigmatized that even somebody who's suffering couldn't set up a culture that was open and came out when it was too late. And I think it's a cautionary tale for others to
mm,
set up that environment like you were talking about, especially if you have an opportunity and you're a co-founder and you know that that's going to be a struggle for you. If you can be open and that just becomes part of the culture, maybe you don't have to step down, because we know also from being in HR, change like this, when your leader steps down, it throws everybody
they'll throw
off.
everything out of
For
whack.
like
Yeah.
3 months, people are like, I wonder if I have a mental health issue, right? Like maybe this isn't a normal environment, and people
Right.
feel
Like, what's going
so
on?
insecure, and maybe it's not. But it's like before you step down and have your letter, put some things in place so it doesn't happen to anybody else, or at least that, I guess he said in the article he's going to be a part-time advisor, but I would love for other people to think about that, especially with startup life. I've worked in many startups, and it's especially tough because you're all you have.
And that's how I took it, in that not necessarily that the culture wasn't supportive, but that he was making the decision that was right for him. Because at some point, like, even if your culture is supportive, you might feel yourself like they're not pushing me out, or, I don't feel like I have to leave, but I do feel like I have to leave. Like, because there's sometimes when you just are not in a place where you want to have to think about work at all. So there's one place where you could be like, it's helpful for you to think about work less. But then sometimes you need to not think about it at all. And I took it from the perspective of, okay, he reached a point where I just can't be thinking about work like that right now. Like, I really have to focus on my mental, and I can see that. I get that. You know what I'm saying? So I could relate to that, where it's like, even if you're working less sometimes, it's still work, right? So we see that now with the remote work. It's like, okay, we're working from home, but we're still working. I'm not any less stressed out. The only thing different is the commute. Like, the like, it's the same type of feeling. So for me, it's like, if I needed to take a break right now, I wouldn't feel like, oh, I don't really need to take a break because I'm home instead of in the office. I'm still working all the time. And I think that only you know what will work best for you. And there may come a time in the future where, he wants to go back, or he can go back part-time or whatever, and I'm sure his company will work, with him or whatever. But I think the most important thing always is to take the step that's right for you. But like you said, Jackie, hopefully there were things set up in place already so it doesn't throw the company in a tailspin and have all of the other employees like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? What's gonna happen? But just speaking to the mental health aspect of it, you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do for you
Yep.
first and foremost, and you wish everybody else well.
Yeah.
I wish y'all well. I can't do this today no more right now. Can't do it. Not here for it. Y'all
I'm at
don't want to
times
see me on
this
the
year.
news.
I can say I'm calling in black today, this year.
That's valid.
And I was like, I can't do this. No, nothing happened directly to me, but I'm feeling
But
the
yes, it did,
pressure.
because they all my distant cousins.
That's right. And when you're working in the, diversity space, you are very aware of your blackness every day. And so when you're like, I think there was one episode of our podcast where I was like, why do they hate us? It was just one of those days where I had to sit back and I was like, that was why it wasn't even a sick and tired. It's like, I need to get back to this place, to my place to be able to function and where I'm not angry. Because that can affect you too. It's beyond, it's a different feeling. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't depression. It was, I'm going to set something on fire.
It was anger. It was anger.
Full anger.
It was y'all Mickey Fricky
Valid.
expect
Valid
us
anger.
to sit in these gish darn Zoom meetings acting like our brethren and sistren aren't being killed in the streets because y'all want to talk about stuff that y'all been talking about for 6 months and ain't nobody still did nothing. Like it was anger, and there's a level of, you know, already as Black folks, you have you can't show your full expressions at work, right? You can't be a full person at work. You damn sure can't be angry at work for nothing. We don't get the benefit of tears at work. We don't get the benefit of yelling and all of that stuff at work, right? So now, you know, that's the work stuff. You bringing all this other stuff on, piling on, and you know, we just watched the same stuff y'all just watched, heard the same stuff, but then, you know, everybody's talking about, should we make a comment? Should we make a statement? Should we do this? Should we do that? And then we want to go and sit and have staff meetings and act like, you know, everything is all the same. Where, like you said, I want to like blow some shit up. Like, I want to, like, I'm looking at you in your little box on the Zoom, and I want to slap you.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't even
because
deal
you're
with
saying ignorant stuff. And it was so, I saw so many of my peers like making comments on Facebooks and things where they're like, I'm just so angry, but you can't express it. You can't show it. Like nobody deals, especially when you look at the people who are like the only Black person at their job and stuff like that. And then think about, you're the only Black person at your job in your HR. My God, that's a setup for that's a setup for alcoholism. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like it was definitely a struggle earlier this year with my Black colleagues, you know, because sometimes you have those conversations offline, those, you know, and everybody's like, what you think about this? What you think about this? What you think about this? And it's like they don't get it.
Welcome to The Human Role, your go-to podcast where HR and payroll collide with innovation. I'm your host, Tiana Neal, and every month I'm diving deep with industry experts and change makers, bringing you real talk insights, practical tips, and fresh takes you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're a leader, practitioner, or just curious about the latest HR and payroll trends, I've got you covered. Ready to roll with the best? Tune in for fresh perspectives, actionable tips, and the knowledge you need to roll forward with confidence. Subscribe now and let's transform the way you work.
No.
And it's like, you can't make someone understand your experience. You can't. You can't make someone feel your lived experience. It's just not possible. All they can do is try to listen for understanding and try to be empathetic and try to make better choices down the line in decisions that they make, right? But it's never going to be what I know exactly how you feel, Tamara. I know exactly how you feel, Jackie. I know exactly, even Katie, you have experiences that we haven't had. You know what I'm saying? I know exactly how, you know, you can't know exactly how we feel, but you can listen for understanding and you can be empathetic and you could, you know, share when you hear someone else make an ignorant comment, call them on it and things like that, right? So this year has been a wild year of sudden understanding of systemic racism.
It has been nuts. I will tell you that Facebook group, and I'll put it in the notes, the Facebook group for Black human resource professionals was a lifesaver this year of people. I know that they weren't having these conversations at the SHRM meetings or in LinkedIn groups where literally people were saying, they just asked me for this, or
Right.
they just said they wanted to promote somebody and I know it's wrong, or I'm about to cuss somebody out. There's been a couple times where it's like, I don't even know how to respond, or I just got written up for this, and people trying to support each other because of that aspect where you do try to stay, you know, you don't want to come off as being angry. But then I was on a panel the other day when somebody asked that same question. I said, what do I have to be happy for? P.S. If you're worried about me being angry, why don't you do something to make me happy?
Do something to make me not angry.
Like,
Okay.
what am I supposed to be happy for that I'm grateful for right now?
What is the thing? That is the thing. Oh my goodness. I was asked, and I want to say earlier this year, but the dates run together.
Yes.
I believe it was earlier this year. I did a presentation at my job about Black women in the workplace, right? I was asked to do this. I mean, you only got to ask me once, right? So I was like, say less. Let's talk about it. So I did this whole nice presentation, you know, about these types of things where it's like, you know, we get cut off or we don't get the same opportunities, our voice is not heard, and all these types of things. And it's like, because then you turn around a week later, 2 weeks later, and people who are in the presentation, right, are doing the same type of stuff I just told y'all was problematic. Okay. So it's the constant always having to, you know, you come up with, do I always have to be on the defensive? But then it's, why are you so defensive? You know what I'm saying? Do
And
I
your
always
HR.
have to be the one to teach? But like, why you not teaching? Like, it's like, which is it? It's like, it's always something, you know? I'm always having to tell you when, as the kids say, you got me effed up, but in a professional manner, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in a professional manner, like, you got me effed up.
Mhm.
Because this is this. But I always tell people, call it out, right? Because if you don't call it out, they're going to keep doing it and think it was right. Now, they might still do it, but they can never say they didn't know it was wrong again.
Yeah.
Because you called it out. So now if I say this was inappropriate, this was disrespectful, this was this, and you do it again, now I know where you're coming from for sure. Because I can't give you the benefit of the doubt that you didn't know because I called you out on it the first time. So that's why I always encourage people, you know, we talk a lot about microaggressions and things like that. Call them out in the moment, you know, or if it's a meeting where you don't want to call somebody out in front of people, call them out after the meeting. But you know what I'm saying? It's got to be close because otherwise they're going to think it's cool. And you can't be mad at them for thinking it's cool if nobody told them it wasn't, you know? So I will always be like, I didn't appreciate that. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And you know, you could take it or run with it. You know, it's funny to me that there seems to always be this I I don't I know I'm not the only one who deals with some of this stuff because like you said, Jackie, in the group, you'll post one thing and it'll be like, oh my goodness, like everybody is like, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And it's like, dang, I'm sad that it's so many of us, but I'm glad that I'm not the only one, that type of thing. Where it's like, there's never the apology, right? There's never the, oh, I was wrong, my mistake, this, that, the other. It's always just like, either sorry you feel that way or not. You know what I'm saying? It's always just like you're the one. You have to take it on as the Black person. And I, like I said earlier, I see through the lens of a Black person. So I don't consider myself to be like BIPOC or person of color or any of that other. I'm Black. So I always see everything through that. So as the Black person, you're always the one who's expected to, you know, fix the issue or ignore the issue or pretend like the issue didn't happen when you weren't the problem. So
Right.
if I tell you, I feel like you came at me in a way that was disrespectful, and then you tell me, oh, my feelings are hurt now because you called me disrespectful. My feelings was hurt when you disrespected me. So what we got? Like, I'm like, where we at? And because I'm not going to apologize for telling you that you treated me wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna, oh, I'm sorry, I made you feel bad for treating me wrong. Who I look like? Oliver? No, it's not. No, sir, don't give me no more. Like, I don't want it. I'm not gonna apologize for telling you that you mistreated me because me telling you that made you feel bad. Sound like a clown.
Right. I can't.
I can't even.
Well, so here's the thing. I think though that's been the mantra of so many white people this year. It's been, oh my goodness, you're making me feel badly because I'm actually having to face some of this stuff, versus I feel badly because it's happening and
Right.
it's wrong. And and how do you switch that lens for folks to, we don't want to talk about you. This isn't about you. And I think that's the piece that, as I am having conversations as a white person, it is the
Are you white, Katie?
I am.
Oh, wow.
A lovely shade of alabaster.
Yes. Except for in the summer, I'm a little bit more
Lighting.
brown. But yeah. But like, I think this is part of it, is that, there is that white people had to face a lot of things this year that they maybe knew was happening and tried to ignore it. I will go with some folks were willfully ignorant. We'll go with. But it is that you're making me feel badly. This doesn't feel good to be thinking about this stuff. And so many of my clients that I work with, that's the piece that I have to like help them with, or kind of walk them through, is you're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna feel badly, but it's not about you. And you need to like just work through that on your own and move past that and circle back to what actually needs to change here and what do we need to do to be better. So no, thank you for sharing. So one last question. This is how we kind of end all of our episodes. For our listeners, what's the one takeaway that you want to make sure people heard you say, or that you want to say now for them to, kind of take from this episode? Not that there weren't a million things that they are going to take from this, but like, what's the one you want to reinforce?
What I would like to reinforce is to take care of yourself. Take care of your mental, well, from two standpoints. So from an individual standpoint, don't be afraid to take care of yourself, right? Don't be afraid to take breaks when you need to. If you're having a mental health challenge, reach out to a therapist, to a counselor, to a friend, somebody, you know what I'm saying? There's resources out there. There's Facebook groups, even there's support groups. There's all kinds of resources out there. You're not alone. Basically, you're not alone. And from an employer standpoint, create an environment that makes people not afraid to address their mental health. Create an environment that supports the mental well-being of your people. Because you're nothing without your people. Your business, whatever it is, operates not a thing without people in there to do it. And so you gotta remember to encourage people to take care of their mental health. And you need to lead by example and create a workplace that encourages that.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackie, what's your one takeaway?
I think my one takeaway was another thing that Tamara said, was just about constantly reminding people of resources and make it accessible so that they have the information before it's a crisis. Right. So as HR, you can help proactively by making sure that the resources are there and that people know how to access them when they're suffering. Just make sure you do that. And if your company isn't doing that, ask for it in advance. We don't have to. It's great if sometimes companies, HR doesn't do it. So if you're listening, you're not in HR, you do it.
Mhm.
find out, and you can help your peers that way.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I would say mine is more kind of we need to destigmatize the whole idea of mental well-being and mental health being something we shouldn't talk about. So it's, kind of to mirror with what both of you said, we need to be talking about these things. And, the fact that you had a CEO of a tech company come out and say, I'm stepping back because of this. I think it is another step in the right direction, because it needs to be conversations that to say, hey, yeah, I go to a therapist. I talk to my therapist every other week. That should be a good for you. That's how
Right.
you're handling whatever you might have going on. Not,
Right.
ooh, you do?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. What's the story there? Why do you have to talk to a therapist? And I think that's the piece that so many of us, especially right now, are dealing with a lot of different things coming at us all the time. So get whatever help you need, and we will definitely share some resources on the show notes. So please, we'll give you some links to teletherapy, other things along those lines. So Tamara, thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you for having me.
yay.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing this conversation. We know our listeners will love to hear it as well. So thank you so much. And we'll talk to you in 2021, my friend.
All right. Have a good one, y'all.